We have seen the latest GDP data, which has been published on Friday, that is on 30th of May. This is for the last quarter of FY25. And actually, it has been a pleasant surprise. It has surpassed expectations. The numbers have come a GDP growth at 7.4% for the Q4, which is actually helped the GDP total growth for the year to reach 6.5. Most of the economists' forecasts, as I understand, were lower than that. So definitely it was a pleasant surprise from that perspective. I think one of the, or rather the key factors which are the drivers of this better than expected performance was clearly the pickup in capital expenditure. Public capital expenditure, which was in a kind of slowdown mode last year because of general elections and other elections. But it really picked up, it caught up in the last quarter. And along with that, the other trend which I believe was important was this export opportunity that was created in this window of April and May because of whole tariff uncertainty, as we all know, the kind of uncertain tariff policies and the expectation that high tariffs, reciprocal tariffs will come in. And so there was a window where I would say preponement or, kind of front loading of exports happened. And that is what is reflected if you see the data also. Export data for March and April was pretty good. April in particular, I have some number. So April merchandise exports actually rose by 10.1%. And this is non-petroleum exports I'm talking about. And if you look at some of the goods where MSMEs are present, sectors like engineering goods, 18.5% year on year. Ready-made garments, 14.4%, which shows that these are stronger numbers, which shows that it was a kind of an opportunity that came up. Gems and jewelry, 10.7% growth. Plastic products, 34%. So where I believe that MSMEs have benefited from this opportunity that came because of tariff uncertainty. Of course, it's not across the board, but in certain sectors, MSMEs or MSME exporters benefited because of this. So coming back on the economy side, I think we have started on a good note. Of course, the forecast for FY26 is a bit moderate at this point. I would put the number at somewhere around 6.3, 6.4%, which will be a slight moderation compared to what we have seen in FY25. And the key reason are is the global uncertainty. There is still an uncertainty on how the tariff policies will shape up and how it will impact. The global markets are also uncertain. Those are the risk factors. Of course, on the positive side, we have forecast of a favorable monsoon. We have low inflation currently, which is a comfort factor, which also will help, the RBI Monetary Policy Committee to take decisions on rate cuts. It looks like there will be another probably 50 basis point rate cuts in the current fiscal. So all these factors are positive from the economic perspective. The downside can happen because of global factors. That's largely the landscape that I see on the economic side.
We are hoping that May will be slightly better or probably flattish, because what we also did was to look at the historic Sumpoorn of April of 24 and April of 23.
Correct.
And it is coming almost close. Sumita might want to chip in here.
Actually, sorry to interrupt, Mr. Narasimhan. It was 0.53 in April 23.
Correct.
0.55 in 24. And April 25, 0.56. So slightly better is what I see.
Correct. It's slightly better. So it's a matter of what I would call as some comfort, but as a steep fall compared to March, I don't think we need to be too worried, was the conclusion that we arrived at internally. And it is in keeping with the fact that, as you also rightly pointed out, there has been a lot of front-loaded sales of March. Inventories were being pushed out. So naturally, April has been a soft month. And
It's
let's see
seasonally, yeah,
how,
Yeah.
correct.
So,
Let's see how
yeah,
May comes up. And
so
true.
actually, if you look
another
at the
area to look
numbers,
at.
yeah.
Go ahead, Sumita.
No, just since we were talking about Sumpoorn, I just wanted to point out that, if you look at the first 4 months of this year, every month is higher than the last corresponding month of the previous year. So, and plus H1 of FY25, the range is lower than the range that is there for the second half of FY25. So, we do have a sense of buoyancy coming through Sumpoorn also. So, I just wanted to
Yes.
flag those numbers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Percy, you
And
can
tractor
continue.
sales are pretty interesting, Sumita. One
Yeah.
thing that I think we discussed even
Yes.
as of today
Tractors,
morning.
correct.
Yes,
Tractor sales
Sumanji.
have grown. What I see from the numbers I read is 8% in April. And even May, I think the numbers look to
They've
be
done
good
well.
in Mahindra's. If I
Yeah,
go by
yeah,
Mahindra
it
sales.
looks good.
They've done
In
very
fact,
well.
Mahindra published it today. 10% growth in tractor
Correct.
sales. I'm just waiting for checking escorts. I mean, the three top big names, if they are delivering steady numbers, that's another big tick mark, because I expect, therefore, that it might be an important good news from a rural consumption perspective, because credit offtake for two-wheelers and other items of personal consumption in the auto sector is a function of rural demand significantly. And if that starts picking up, I think April would have been reasonably compensated, is what we feel.
True.
Actually, I had another question when it comes to credit. When we're talking about credit, we felt that the landscape has been changing quite dramatically over the past 1 year because of certain regulatory changes as far as unsecured lending goes, and kind of clamping down on personal loans. And it's been a lot of portfolio shifts for banks as well as NBFCs. So
That's right.
I think your SIDBI surveys also have been pointing out that things are good, but small businesses are a little wary of getting credit. Am I right?
MSMEs always have issues with access to credit. And credit challenges are there, and don't think that it will go away very quickly. So recently, in our study, we estimated that the total credit gap in the MSME sector, including micro enterprise, is around 30 lakh crore. I mean, it is based on a subtle model we ran. It's very difficult to say how accurate it is, but it is a number that we have arrived at. As far as what you are saying is right, that there are issues in terms of unsecured loan because of regulatory tightening. So you must have seen that microfinance portfolio outstanding is actually coming down. There is a negative growth in the portfolio. NBFC's portfolio is also showing lesser growth. But if I look at RBI data on MSMEs, priority sector, that is still showing a good, healthy portfolio growth. I just have the April data. So April last fortnight, or April 19th or 20th, year on year, PSL MSME is still 18.5%.
Very good. Yeah.
So I think MSME portfolio overall is still looking good. So, what I'm trying to say is the growth in the MSME portfolio of banks is still fairly positive because of a lot of factors of the policy push, different government programs, including Mudra. The momentum is still on. But at the same point, what we have also seen, I should mention this, that what CIBIL in their latest MSME Pulse report that we published, they have said that on the commercial part, which is the bigger ticket MSMEs or small and medium, the disbursements have kind of slowed down. So there is a kind of a negative growth in disbursement in the last quarter. So some kind of, I would say, a little bit of credit, I would say concerns maybe, or maybe because of the volatile external environment that has come, because of which disbursements have slowed down in the last quarter. Now we have to see what happens in the current quarter. But portfolio growth is still quite healthy as far as MSMEs are concerned. For SIDBI, what we can mention is SIDBI's last year direct finance portfolio, which we primarily goes to small and medium enterprises, also partly micro. That portfolio has grown very significantly. So we are quite positive that the portfolio growth will be in double digits for the MSME sector in the current year.
Just wanted one item I wanted to flag for a quick discussion, very specifically from your perspective, Sumanji. See, CGT MSE has been doing stellar work, and the guarantees are up very, very significantly by 51% over time and on a YOY basis. But do you see that there could be some adverse pressure given that the RBI has advised on the FLDG to be not grantable in respect of those loans that are covered under CGT MSE? So is this going to be a problem when it comes to NBFC lending, etc.? I'm not speaking specific to SIDBI itself, but do you see this to be another thing that works to be somewhat adverse in the flow of credit?
Mr. Narasimhan, we have to assess this properly. I am not sure as to how internally we will assess this. All I know is that this CGT MSE coverage has been increasing, and this is one of the factors which has helped in kind of enhancing the credit exposure for MSMEs. And enabling banks and NBFCs to give collateral-free loans. I think clearly it has been a game changer, and we see the coverage steadily increasing. As you know, the quantum of coverage has also been enhanced in the last budget or in one of the announcements last year from 5 crores to 10 crores. So I think on the CGT MSE part, things are going well.
Another item that is definitely a matter of discussion has been the restrictions on the gold loan, because the RBI has indeed come up with a draft paper on it, which I think the ministry as well has given a response, because the kind of documentation that is required to establish the ownership and the history of how the gold has come into possession seems to be fairly difficult to comply. And we know very well that in South India especially, most of the very small businesses, especially the family-run ones, do rely on taking care of seasonal working capital needs by pledging their gold, as well as for some amount of personal consumption. Do you see this in any way hampering the way credit will stop flowing at the micro level? Because that is of concern, not the real medium ones, which are slightly more organized in terms of being able to raise their finances.
I don't think we have exact numbers as to how many micro MSMEs are pledging gold, but definitely if the quantum of financing is reduced, or the LTV guidelines are getting tightened, it might have some impact in the near term. But having said that, I think overall for the financial sector, it is important to kind of in the long run to have robust processes and to make sure that the volatility in gold prices, that doesn't impact the health of the lenders, the health of the NBFCs. So I think it is not a bad move. It's something that is welcome. But the impact has to be seen. I'm not sure to what extent MSMEs are pledging gold. Unless we have a feel of that number for their financing, we will not be able to understand this. SIDBI, for example, I don't think we have any gold-based product. The risk on the domestic side, as Mr. Narasimhan mentioned, is that, urban consumption, rural consumption, we believe is still going strong. There is a weak crop and monsoon is favorable. So agriculture is supposed to continue doing well. So rural demand should be stable. The issue is with urban consumption, urban demand, which has seen some slowdown last year. But the expectation is that there is some tax benefits that are being given. Interest rate cuts are going to happen, already happening. So there will be some pass through to the urban consumers particularly. So that benefit will come. And because of that benefit, maybe the urban spending will improve. That is the expectation. If that happens, I think probably that risk will be partly offset, but that is something that we need to observe. We need to see how urban consumption is moving.
Because I was just looking back, I was just thinking that, every event has a plus and a minus side. So if you look at Operation Sindoor, for instance, I mean, it was, war with Pakistan. It also has an implication of increased defense spending, R&D and innovation, and therefore on the supply chain, it should help small businesses eventually.
Yes.
On the other hand, a favorable monsoon last year, because of the flash flooding and all, the Reserve Bank had put in their monetary policy statement. The first reason for the slowdown in Q2, we had impact of localized heavy rain on non-agri, non-farm activity. So it's kind of balanced out a little bit.
Yeah, that is always there. Extreme weather events will have some impact, and it has a disproportionate impact on MSMEs if it is hitting them, because their insurance cover, etc., is typically, compared to large corporate, is less. So that's always there. I think the current year, I would say it should be a cautious optimism. As of now, there is no reason to believe that growth will slow down significantly. It might be a little less compared to last year. But I think the comfort factor is that the RBI, through their monetary policy, will try to kind of focus on growth, as they have already articulated. And the interest rate cuts and interest rate transmissions will happen, and hopefully MSMEs will also be able to benefit from the rate cuts. So there will be some pro-growth stance that both the government and the RBI is taking and likely to take further. So I believe that, we don't see much of a surprise on the growth front. But yes, there are some factors like urban consumption that needs to be watched out.
I would agree with Sumanji as well that we will take a little bit of a cautious optimism conclusion and explain the trends that have been seen across the April months of the past year to draw comfort as to how things are. But nevertheless, the quiet numbers on the RAI, the retail data for the 9 industries, which basically are bellwether for consumption, that coming in at around 4%. If you recall, Sumita, what was it in April of last year, off the top of your mind?
No, it was 4% as well, but the previous March was, it's off 6%.
Yeah, so therefore there is some concern that is emerging.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one point on the demand part or consumption part that Mr. Narasimhan, you pointed out. And, my understanding of what, again, as Professor Sumita also highlighted, that sometimes, weather factors determine the demand trends, the consumption trends. So one thing that has happened is that the summer is shorter because of early rains, as you know. So it was a less intense summer this time. So April also some rains happened. May it has rained heavily in Mumbai, which is unlikely. So what has happened? There are certain consumption goods where demand has been less than expected.
True.
So take all the cold drinks, for example, just to cold drinks, ice creams, air conditioners. So this also has been a factor that many parts of India, certain products which are meant for the summer season has seen lesser demand.
Yeah.
I think that is factored in the data probably. that we have seen?
Partly yes, because one is even if I just loop back and I watch the listed companies even closely, Blue Star, Voltas, who are all bellwether from an air conditioner perspective, Amber, three bellwether stocks have definitely not performed very well in the very recent month, more due to tapering of the demand and clear statements coming out that there has been not a big cut, but definitely a cut in the production numbers in terms of capacity utilization because the not so hot a summer that typically spikes all this, and likewise air cooler sales as well. And QSR, however, has been quite good at a good number. But what was surprising to me was some very, very small growth only in things like footwear, etc., because these are all great bellwether indicators for personal consumption, because this is something that I closely look at. Not the luxury part of it, but typical footwear. Right. Schools are opening. Everybody wants to buy their normal footwear from entities like Relaxo at the lower budget end or from Metro brands at the higher end. Whatever it be, there is a visible quietening. So it's a mixed bag. I would agree. Partly season has played truant and has affected some of these items of sales. And I think there is definitely some quietening which we need to take cognizance of. I'm aligned with you, sir. Would you like to also touch upon something where is there any scheme from SIDBI that's up on the radar which could, stimulate MSME growth? Anything that's on the anvil that you might want to mention just in case?
I don't think there is any new product as such. There are products which have been launched earlier, like GST Sahay. You must have heard about it. And it is, I think, still in the trial stage, but it is a 200, if I'm right, it's a 200 crore portfolio now. And it is started to grow. So we are quite optimistic that this portfolio will grow further. So that we are positive on that. It is about, seeing more growth or financing through digital platforms. That is the focus of SIDBI currently, and the government, to see how more can we lend through digital platforms. So that's the whole idea. Also, on the direct financing side, we are trying to see whether we can support capital expenditure requirements of MSMEs, particularly, in many, even in services sectors like hotels, for example, because as you know, that there is a kind of domestic tourism. Domestic travel is kind of rising, and religious tourism, for example, is kind of seeing an increasing trend. There are new investments in hotels that are coming, and in let's say mid-market or MSMEs. So there we are trying to see if that is where there is any financing opportunity or support assistance that we can provide.
One elephant in the room that we have forgotten, which I thought we should take note of, is the sudden news about COVID. And with the spread of cases, etc., while it seems to be that the variant in circulation is not of any large concern, nevertheless, that's the one unknown. That none of us can hazard or provide for. Yes. We can only hope and pray that there is nothing untoward that would ever happen that might affect the economy at all.
Yes.
For me, actually, I would think that for May, you expect almost a similar, number as April, but there could be a small downside because of the unexpected rain in May, because it was unexpected, and that has thrown a lot of cities out of gear and affected, the way people are actually operational. So that could
maybe
if you see a 0.55 is a possibility that we cannot ignore for me.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, it could be 1 point either way. But an upside would surprise me.
Yeah.
0.58 plus.
Would surprise me.
Yeah, especially as May we had the disruption in travel also because of the.
Yes. So there is, I think, reasons to believe that May will see a little bit of an impact because of these factors.
Yeah. Pleasure talking to you and listening
Thank you.
to your
It was a
views.
pleasure indeed.
Thank you.
It was my pleasure. Thank you, Mr. Narasimhan, Professor Sumita.